Ui. Neuer Startbildschirm. Mit Musik. Oh, das ist aber fein.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-ending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in.
Das ist so
They
bescheuert.
had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow.
Nicht
No
ein
one had showed up
einziger.
to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Hier hängen Luftballons überall. Das ist
All
doch
of his
schön.
co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Ein Eimer.
Stanley picked up the bucket.
Jetzt haben wir einen Eimer. Wir müssen hier ein bisschen Strom sparen.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Haben wir noch nie gemacht, die Tür zur Linken als erstes. Wir sind rechts auch, glaube ich, noch nicht ganz durch.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And
Yeah.
here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be.
Ja. Ich hab meinen Eimer lieb.
No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
So, hier haben wir... Nein,
Said the bucket.
Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
okay, das ist neu. Die Tür ging vorher nicht zu, glaube ich.
Good.
Said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Das Spiel ignoriert einfach, dass ich hier runtergehüpft bin.
No, stop.
What-
Look
what?
there on the wall. You see, there's a sign right there. It says, no buckets past this point. Stanley, how could you think it was okay to bring the bucket here? Unless...
Das habe ich schon mal
The problem is
gelesen
that you
vor
actually
Ewigkeiten.
don't know what is a bucket and what isn't a bucket. I suppose that would explain a lot about your behavior up to this
Okay.
point. Which, if that's true, well, my goodness, I think we have to do something about it. This misunderstanding could have dire consequences on the entire rest of the game if not addressed quickly and properly. So much of the impact of the story is dependent on your understanding of what is and isn't a bucket. Please, step in here for
Huch.
a moment.
Ich will da nicht rein.
Now then, I'm going to run you through some test scenarios, and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a
Eine
bucket.
Quizshow.
Simple enough, right? This should tell us everything we'll ever need to know
Wir sind
about
in einer
what is
Quizshow.
or is not a bucket. Okay, let's begin.
Genau, ist ein First-Person-Adventure.
Item 1. Is this a bucket?
Nee.
Correct. It is a hologram of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
Ha! Habe ich ja richtig geraten. Und es ist eigentlich...
Item 2. Is
Nee, es
this
ist
a
auch
bucket?
kein Eimer.
Correct. It is a 3D printed recreation of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
Der Erzähler versucht einem hier irgendwie immer irgendwas zu erzählen und man macht halt irgendwie, was man macht. Und dann passieren
Item
Dinge.
3. Is this a bucket?
Nee.
Incorrect. This is a bucket.
Nein, ist kein Eimer. Ich habe einen Eimer in der Hand. Da, das ist ein
Item
Bucket.
4.
Das,
Is this a bucket?
ja.
Are you hallucinating? This is a tractor. It's an enormous machine that tills the earth. I thought this was a gimmick. How on earth did you manage to screw it up? Absolutely incredible. Let's just move on to the next one.
Da kann man doch was reinmachen und dann ist es ein Eimer. Der hat keine Ahnung, dieser Erzähler.
Is this a bucket?
Das ist auch ein Eimer, ja. Da kann man auch was reintun.
Correct. This is a bucket.
Sag ich doch. Endlich glaubt der Erzähler mir mal.
Item
Stop
6.
Motion. Geil.
Is this a bucket?
Nee.
Trick question. Both. Gotcha.
Hä? Geil.
Item... Wait, hold on. I can't find the next one. Let me see. It should be around here somewhere.
Ich habe einen in der Hand. Das ist ein Eimer.
Okay, you and I both know there isn't anything here.
Klar.
And I don't appreciate the implication that nothing is a bucket when we both clearly know that a bucket is something. And
Nee.
therefore nothing could possibly be something. Unless, in your twisted mind, have you somehow convinced yourself that a bucket is nothing?
Ja.
Answer me straight, Stanley. Do you believe that nothing is a bucket?
Ja.
You know what? I'm too confused to even sort it out. I've lost all sense of perspective. What is a bucket? What isn't a bucket? Mere moments ago I could
weiß
answer
man
these
auch
questions with
einfach nicht, ne?
confidence. And yet now I'm somewhat adrift. Do any of us know what a bucket is? Am I a bucket?
Du bist auch ein Bucket.
Stanley, I can't keep doing this. I'm losing myself, and myself
Ja,
was
doch
all I
schon.
ever had to begin with.
Und nein.
I'm afraid the bucket is threatening to tear our relationship apart. I can't have that. I'm sorry.
Nimm mir nicht den
I'm
Eimer
gonna
weg.
erase all buckets
Nein.
from the game entirely. Okay, here we go.
Das sind meine Eimer.
What
Aber
happened? Is everything gone? Why did everything
weil
disappear?
das Spiel auch ein Eimer
Was
ist.
everything a bucket?
Ja.
Every single thing in the game was
Ja.
a bucket. Oh my God, I had no idea.
Bis auf diese komischen runden
Except
Dinger,
me.
die unten
I'm
zu
not
sind,
a bucket
um ein
after
Loch
all.
haben.
And you, Stanley, you're still here. You're not a bucket either.
Hi, Nick.
This is wonderful news. We're not buckets. Yes,
Yes.
I actually feel much more at
Ich
ease
bin
right
kein
now.
Eimer.
Excellent. So, tell you what. I'll reset everything and we'll put back all of the buckets.
Ja,
Okay?
Eimer.
And we'll know that it's all a bucket. But if
Mehr
you run
Eimer.
into anyone else, maybe don't mention that. Who knows what that information might do to a person. All
Okay.
right, here we go.
Ihr habt nichts gehört, ich erzähle niemandem was. Oh, da muss man noch mal kurz was eingeben. Sehr gut.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting
Da
room,
stand
and Stanley
kein
knew it
Eimer.
perfectly well. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Ja, das habe ich ausnahmsweise wirklich mal vor. Ich glaube, da unten haben wir auch alles gemacht. Ich bin mir gerade nicht mehr sicher, aber ich habe keine Lust, hier nochmal herzulaufen. Deswegen, hier ganz neu, hier waren wir noch nie. Zumindest sind wir da noch nie rausgekommen. Aber hier waren wir
Yet
schon
there was
mal.
not a single person here either.
Hier
Feeling a
war
wave
ich
of
schon mal.
disbelief,
Das
Stanley
haben wir uns auch
decided
alles
to
schon
go
mal
up to his
durchgelesen.
boss's office, hoping he might
Danke,
find an answer
danke.
there.
Steht hier was Neues drauf? Nee. Das stand da letztes Mal auch schon alles mit diesem komischen Bi-Quarterly Post-Review. Ja, nee, das brauchen wir uns nicht nur angucken. Da ist jemand eingesperrt. Das konnte man letztes Mal nicht aufmachen.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Das ist eine
There was
Zange.
nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
23 Uhr oder so, denke ich mal. Mal gucken.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the
Hier
broom
muss man doch
closet.
irgendwas
He
machen
wasn't even
können.
doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there.
Guck mal,
doing
3D-Drucker haben die
sleep
hier auch. Da muss man doch irgendwas von mitnehmen
Are you
können.
really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused.
Ja, das bin ich auch oft. Das ist halt so, lieber Erzähler. Okay.
You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find
Ah, der erzählt richtig was.
It didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever.
Ja, aber dafür erzählst du.
To mention it.
Du hast die erwähnt, lieber Erzähler. Du hast immer mal gesagt, irgendjemand hängt in der Business. Nee, auch in
Maybe to
dem.
you this is somehow its own branching path.
In
Maybe
der-
when you go talk about this with your friends, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite."
Gibt's ein
Your
Ending?
friends find this concerned.
Okay. In dem Meeting Room stand das auf irgendeiner Wand, dass irgendjemand hier eingesperrt ist.
Stanley was
Ich erinnere
fat and
mich.
ugly and really stupid.
Hat
He
der mich
probably
gerade
only
fett,
got the
hässlich und
job
dumm
because of a
genannt?
family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
What? Wie redest du über mich?
Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got
Ja,
to this broom
irgendwie
closet,
nicht.
explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here, when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed in front of your screen.
Nee, das
Well, in a
ist nicht
situation
passiert.
like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone
Ich hätte nicht
nearby
gedacht, dass die
so as
Besenkammer
to
so
ensure
witzig
that
ist.
your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. They have fallen prey to any number
Warte.
of your countless human physiological
Nee,
vulnerabilities.
noch
It's
geht's.
indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video games.
Hallo Selina.
So that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right. When you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
Das Spiel besteht daraus. Und hallo Kuflix. Kuflix. Eigentlich, ich glaube, man kann das relativ schnell durchspielen, wenn man möchte, indem man genau das tut, was der Erzähler einem erzählt. Also diese Stimme aus dem Off. Es passieren aber ganz witzige Dinge, wenn man es halt nicht macht. Sondern das Gegenteil.
Second player. It's good to have you on board. You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. A fish? Fungus? Look, you can hammer out the
Fungus.
details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again.
Okay.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Okay, gucken wir erstmal, was unten ist. Ein Collectible. Ach ja, die muss man hier ja.
You found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't
Geil.
buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
Ja. Das tat wirklich gut jetzt. Wo geht's hier hin?
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for
Schickes
that.
Auto.
And in such a competitive economy, why
das-
had he taken that
Das ist ein
risk?
Polo, oder?
All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. all of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason
Obviously,
at all?
I'm
None of
crazy.
it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why
Stimmt.
did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to
Danke
look
für
pretty
deine
familiar.
celebration,
Were they simply
Mary.
repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled.
Was?
This is
Nein.
all a dream.
Ach, Quatsch.
Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone.
Kann man
He
da
wasn't
irgendwie...
going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy
Ich
after
will ein
all. He
Kaltgetränk
thought to
haben.
himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my
Coffee nut.
boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So,
Wir sind im Kreis
he imagined
gelaufen.
himself flying and began to
Geil.
gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun.
Dream
And
state.
Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid?
Dream
And
state.
then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange.
Können wir schneller
I'm
laufen?
dreaming about a voice
Nee, ne?
describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How
Nee,
could it be?
Das war kein
Was
Traum.
Stanley
Aber
simply
Füße habe
deceiving
ich trotzdem
himself,
nicht. Das macht mich ein
believing that
bisschen
if
kirre.
he's
Das wäre
asleep, he
cool.
doesn't have to take
Füße
responsibility
zu
for
haben
himself?
wäre eigentlich schon ganz geil.
Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too, surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he
Echt?
closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to
Nein,
wake
nein.
up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back.
Nee, ich
fresh
leg mich
air
jetzt
of
nicht
the
hin.
world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream.
Okay,
I
we
wish it to be
spawn.
over. Let me go back to my job.
We
Let me continue
spawn.
pushing the buttons. Please. It's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal.
Ja, alles wird gut. Alles wird gut.
Everything
Ganz
will be
sicher.
fine. I am okay.
I am okay. Ja, nö.
Stanley began screaming.
Ah!
Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Wer ist denn jetzt Mariella? Warum?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings,
Es geht
and
hier um
walked to her
Stanley.
place of work. But on this particular day, her
Ich komme gleich
walk
zu
was
deiner Frage,
interrupted
Nick.
by the
Alles
body
gut.
of a
Ich habe das
man
nicht
who had
überlesen.
stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy.
Yeah.
This much she
Yeah.
knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that
Hi.
moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, And in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel
Das sind die
better.
Gedanken, die man beim
Then
Anblick
she
eines
remembered the
Verrückten
meeting
haben
she had
sollte.
scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Hallo? Nicht mal ein Krankenwagen ruft die? Was ist das denn für eine? Okay, wieder ein Anfang. Rechts müssten, theoretisch, vielleicht, wir alles gemacht haben. Ich glaube, in diesem, wenn man ans Telefon rangeht, gab es auch nicht mehr so viele Möglichkeiten, was man machen konnte. Wir rennen jetzt hier mal durch. Mal gucken, wo es uns hinführt. So, das haben wir hier alles schon mal gemacht. Das ist ein neues Slide-Ding. Ja. Christian, danke für dein Hydrate. Trust the completionist instinct. Why wouldn't they just tell us something will happen? Artistic rendering. Okay. There will be a reward for finding them all. Okay, man weiß also noch nicht so ganz. Das Spiel widerspricht sich selbst. Hier ist eine Liste, wo die Collectibles alle sind. Das ist, nimm die rote Tür. Okay, das wäre rechts abbiegen und dann, da waren wir auf jeden Fall schon mal. Ich glaube, in den Keller fahren. A large room, lots of boxes. Keine Ahnung, fällt mir gerade nichts ein. Nearby a fireplace fällt mir auch nichts ein. Und a private but smelly place klingt wie ein Klo important person beim Boss. Wir müssen ja zum Chef hoch jetzt. Wollen wir hier nochmal reingucken?
No, not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time.
Mann, aber wenn er nichts sagt, ist das doch langweilig.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his
Ja,
boss's
wir machen das
office.
jetzt. Executive Bathroom. Da.
Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini-stands? Stanley
Mini-Stands.
figs. What about Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like that.
Stanlerines.
Another Stanlerine under your belt.
Juhu! Ich würde gern springen, aber das darf man hier ja nicht. Hände waschen. Immer schön Hände waschen. Die Spülung hätte man aber schon auch benutzbar machen können. Oh, da steht was. Ich bekomme das Gefühl, Geld ist zum Klauen. Aber nicht deins. Okay. Das Büro vom Chef ist da irgendwo. Nee, das sieht anders aus. Das war grün beim letzten Mal. Ich will trotzdem da lang, die Tür war zu. Ich habe Angst. Fahrstühle bedeuten nie was Gutes. Was ist das denn für ein hässliches Bild? I am the most expensive boss. Ja, das will auch jeder. Das ist bei Elon Musk im Büro. Ein bisschen Schiss vor dem Fahrstuhl. Egal. Hoch? Wir fahren nach oben. Ich muss schlafen wegen Schule, also alles klar, Nick. Danke, dass du vorbeigeschaut hast. Vielen Dank für diesen tollen Support. Das hat mich sehr gefreut. Und ich hoffe, man liest sich mal wieder. Schlaf gut und komm morgen gut aus dem Bett. Ich wusste, dass Fahrstuhl keine gute Idee ist. Christian, im YouTube-Chat. Das siehst du nicht, Christian. Also du guckst bei YouTube, dann siehst du das. Oh, was ist das? Anstrengend. Alles klar. Ich freue mich. Ernsthaft, das war hier jetzt nur... Was ist, wenn wir nach unten drücken? Wer soll das denn lesen können? Wer ist der Lesegeil? Singt der Erzähler mit? Der Erzähler singt mit, oder? Hallo Christian! Okay, hier wird nichts passieren. Wieso ist deine Zahl bei YouTube anders als bei Twitch, Christian? Das musst du mir erläutern.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled,
Das Klavier ist
Stanley
auch
wondered
kaputt.
in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him?
Das sieht komplett
What he could
anders
not have
aus.
known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Ja, sowas ist eigentlich immer...
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
Falsch rum. Guck mal, 28, das ist ja auch schon...
2845. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing.
Oh mein
He stepped
Gott,
into
was ist
the
das für
newly
ein
opened passageway.
Secret Boss hier, Alter? Die Decke ist auch auf einmal 30 Mal höher als vorher. Kommen wir da wieder raus? Nee. Yes!
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think,
Figlies!
Stanley? What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Ich könnte einen Button pushen, der mich entscheiden lässt. Nicht? Na gut. Dann nicht. Wehe, der Fahrstuhl funktioniert jetzt nicht.
It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years
Ja,
it
warum
had
die
never
Nummern
occurred to him?
unterschiedlich sind.
This question would not go unanswered for long.
Random Nummerngenerator oder?
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Nee. Definitiv nicht.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
I don't care.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Aber das ist bestimmt irgendwas Spannendes am
At
Ende.
this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Ja. Das ist echt tot. Also Englisch bleiben. Ich fühle mich
As the
nicht
machine
tot.
whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever.
Witzig.
Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story. Trapped forever in his narrow vision.
Aber ich
of what
sitze ja
was
extra da.
is.
Extra nicht
Perhaps
vor dem
his death was
Untertitel.
of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he
Klatsch.
resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Hallo Wand. Kaputt?
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Ich merk nix.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as
Okay.
alive as ever.
Okay.
What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you
Geil.
walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was
Das
already
ist unser
dead
Büro.
from the moment he hit start?
Dieser Plan zeigt das Büro vom Spielanfang. Der Weg von Stanleys Büro zu den beiden Türen war der erste Teil des Spiels, der gebaut wurde. Dann kann man hier lang, da lang, da lang. Gang. Das war der Gang. Und dann geht man durch die linke Tür. Als der Raum erstellt worden war, entwickelt sich der Rest des Spiels als eine Erweiterung davon. Also das war wahrscheinlich die Urversion. Mehr gab's nicht. Das ist ein Computer. Was kann dieser Computer? Das ist Stanleys Computer. Er kann nichts. Wundervoll. Landschaftsgemälde. Toll, 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 toll. Das Büro. Knopfgeräusche. Eine Auswahl an Geräuschen, die im gesamten Spiel beim Druck von Knöpfen verwendet werden. Jedes Geräusch ist eine Mischung aus einem Tastaturanschlag und einem künstlichen Ton. Das war ein Nokia-Handy. Das ist schön. Ich mag die 1. Irgendwie ist unser Erzähler gestorben, kann das sein? Oh, hier sind die Credits. Cool, 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 cool. Was ist das? Aktenschränke. Ach, so sehen die aus. Okay. Von hinten sieht man nicht so viel. Das sind also Aktenschränke. Krass. Die müssen wir alle ausmachen. Das ist besser. Ui. Wo ist das grüne Chefbüro? Es gab ein grün. Habe ich das geträumt? Das war grün. Ah, okay, Christian hat den Erzähler verjagt. Okay, das ergibt natürlich Sinn. Hier sind nirgendwo Türen, deswegen kann eigentlich nichts schief gehen. Aber das schon noch, es geht schief aus. The Underground, da waren wir gerade. Da wollen wir auch nochmal hin. In diesen Raum mit dieser wackelnden Lampe gehen wir später. Das sieht aus, als würde da was Gruseliges passieren. Freiheitsende, das haben wir schon gesehen. Das kennen wir schon. Was ist das alles? Keine Ahnung, ich glaube, das kenne ich nicht. Das Game is no paused. Das sieht ein bisschen anders aus, aber ja. Da kann man nichts mitmachen. Ich verlaufe mich gerade mächtig. Aha, okay. Die Wohnung war ziemlich cool, das war richtig schick gemacht. Die Lounge, okay. Das haben wir noch nicht gesehen, das gucken wir uns nicht zu genau an. Ey, dieses Spiel ist einfach riesig, ne? The Game Feature, keine Ahnung, Erzähler-E-Mails. Ja. Was ist das Telefon? Hier geht's nochmal hoch. Alter, wie riesig ist das denn hier? Das sind ein paar Office-Ansichten. Hinter Glasscheiben. Ein klassisches Museum. war schon. Dann, Wartungsraum, da waren wir auch schon. Ich habe keine... Ah, okay, jetzt habe ich einmal im Kreis gelaufen. Alles klar. Ja, okay. Okay, dann gehen wir jetzt doch in den Raum mit der wackelnden Lampe.
Stanley jumped in the river.
Nein. Kevin Brighting.
Then he
Stimmt,
pushed the
das
number
erzählt
4. And finally, he pushed the number 9. Where were all of his co-workers? Oh, I don't know. How about they're throwing a surprise party for him for all his button pushing? Does that sound plausible to you? Stanley pushed the number 6. Stanley stood on the roof.
Witzig.
When Stanley came to the lift,
Irgendwo war ein Aufzug. Wie kommen wir? Wir müssen durch den Aufzug. Also irgendwie müssen wir hier auch wieder rauskommen. Da ist ein Aufzug. Warte, dahinter geht's. Da waren wir schon. Da waren wir nicht. Exit. Aha.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another.
Das
How
stimmt
they
doch gar
both
nicht.
wish to be free.
Ich will nur Sachen ausprobieren. Der darf ruhig so. Aus.
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not.
Ich
Sometimes
sehe
these
nichts.
things cannot be seen.
Wie soll ich denn was sehen, wenn es dunkel ist?
But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Turn off your PlayStation. There's no
Nein.
other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path.
PlayStation aus.
Stop
Wo
now.
kommen wir denn da hin?
Only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
Au! Zum Ende ein herzliches Dankeschön von uns beiden fürs Zuschauen. Wir hoffen, es hat genauso viel Spaß gemacht zuzuschauen wie das Aufnehmen und das Streamen.
Lasst gerne einen Kommentar da, drückt den Daumen nach oben und abonniere unseren Kanal.
Genau, den Kanal findest du hier. Die Videos da. Ein paar Empfehlungen. Bis dann.
Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen.